And let's begin by telling you that the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board has admitted that there were errors that affected the performance of candidates during the 2025 Unified Tertiary Matriculation examination held across different centers in the country. The Registrar, Ishaq Oloyede, who disclosed this during a media briefing in Abuja on Wednesday, also broke down in tears while admitting to the errors. He also announced that about 379,997 candidates in the just concluded academic exercise would retake the examination. This followed widespread complaints of technical glitches, unusually low scores, and irregularities in the questions and the answers during the exercise. And now to security matters. There are fears in the northeast about the future of security in the region following Tuesday's attacks on 2 army bases by terrorists, which left at least 7 soldiers killed in Borno State. The attacks occurred less than 24 hours after another deadly attack on troops in the region. Although the military insists it has degraded the terrorists, local sources say the insurgents seized 3 gun trucks and 70 motorcycles intended for counter-terrorism operations and set the military base on fire. A video circulated on social media shows bodies covered with leaves and colleagues trying to identify the dead. The Senate has also asked the service chiefs to deploy men and modern equipment to the northeast. And now to discuss this, we're joined by security expert Darlington Omoro. Mr. Omoro, many thanks for joining us. Let's just get started. A very sad news indeed, and also worrying as well. The scale of the attacks gives the impression that our forces are on the back foot. Borno is on the boil again. How come we're back here again? What happened?
Can you take that question again? I didn't quite hear you very well.
I was saying that it seems that we are back here again, and the scale of these attacks give the impression that our forces are at their wit end, and Borno is at the boiling point at this point. So how come we're back here again, given all the body language from the presidency, the statements that was made, the joint task force, and all the emphasis in Borno and Katsina and Plateau? But to see this is unprecedented. What's going on?
Well, I think there's desperation on the part of the terrorists now. From what we're gathering, it's like both ISWAP and Boko Haram are unleashing terror almost at the same time and differently, unlike what we used to have in the past. So far, it's obvious that these terrorists are also hungry to cut away equipment, to further increase their strength. The military has denied the fact that the gunboats, 3 gunboats were not actually taken away. We are having conflicting stories as to whether that is true or not. But what can really not be defended right now is that there were attacks. There was also another report that said that those gunboats were actually set ablaze. They were set on fire. Apparently, that's one of the things the terrorists usually would do, so that in the course of reprisal, they will not be used against them. They want to paralyze the movement of such equipment so that they won't use them to come after them. But even so, it's not as if the terrorists had a field day and went away. But of course, you know that the army will always do what they know how to do best. But even so, it's not a good one at this point in time. Borno has been on the boil, like you said, for some time since December, and the military has been trying their best to see how they could curtail all of this. But don't forget that, like we said yesterday, the terrorists are deploying new equipment and mechanism, in carrying out some of this nefarious attack. But the army, the Nigerian military are up to it. They are up to the game.
Now, I mean, Mr. Omoro, this is a very bold move by the terrorists, I would say, even though you say that they seem desperate. But this is very bold because they're going to the military base. And this tracks with the governor of the state who said that the terrorists were regrouping and that things could get worse, and now they have indeed become worse. So it begs to ask the question, what exactly did we do wrong? And by we, I mean, the security forces, whether the Joint Task Force or the National Security Advisor or the presidency itself. What happened? What was amiss after that, call or cry for help from the governor?
I don't think there's anything they've done wrong. It's just that the terrorists they just wouldn't give up, and they are increasing their attack. They want to do all they could to instill that palpable fear again in Borno. All the military needs to do is to employ the use of technology at this point in time to monitor movement in Borno, particularly in those areas where they know that are culpable. Beyond that, it's not the first time we are having attacks on military bases over time. It's not really the first time we are having such attacks. One of the reasons why they will want to attack a military base is to cut away, get equipment, particularly maybe when they are running short of what they have. The best place to go to get equipment, of course, is the military base, to see how they can also use that to, beyond cutting away those wanting to equip themselves with the military equipment, they also want to reduce the strength of the military by cutting away those equipment in those military bases. But that is happening now does not mean that we have not experienced them in the past. But it's just that the military, I think surveillance, there should be more of surveillance with the use of the UAV, patrol aircraft and all of that to monitor the sources of these terrorists and then take them out.
Now, so you said that that these attacks are not new, and the reasons why they happen is either they're trying to reduce the manpower, and by manpower I mean the personnel of this bases, and also have access to their armory.
Not manpower. I said equipment.
So
they want to reduce the strength of the military, and then the strength by cutting away the equipment.
Hang on. Yes. Yeah. So the equipment, and by I could be manpower. So whether you reduce equipment or not, persons have died, right? And in cutting away those equipments, persons have died. So that manpower has reduced, whether we like it or not. The question here is, how confident then are we that the tide could change or turn in the shortest possible time in the favor of the Nigerian army and the people of Borno?
Well, there's a lot of assurance, because the military apparently would not give up. And you do not expect that the terrorists will give up very easily and so soon. Borno is the home of Sambisa Forest, where they have their headquarters. That's where they are based, and of course, when they come out, they go for pockets of attacks. And so sometimes, since December, we have we've recorded a series of attacks across Borno State, particularly in those local governments that are close to the borders. And so it's as much as it calls for worry, but I do not think the military is overwhelmed at this point in time. They are still up to it. It is expected that at different times or at certain times, the terrorists will always come out, whether ISWAP, whether Boko Haram, will always come out to want to hit either the military or innocent citizens where there are gatherings. But I know that over time, two of those reasons I stated for attacking military bases are not out of place.
All right. Well, Darlington, many thanks for doing this with us. We appreciate you for coming on. Darlington, a security expert, they're giving us a bit of insight following the attacks that we saw in Borno State. Now away from Borno and now to Edo State, as the former Edo State Governor, Senator Adams Oshiomhole, has expressed strong support for President Bola Tinubu's economic reforms, asserting that despite the hardship currently experienced by Nigerians, the administration is on the right path to recovery. Now, speaking in Abuja, the lawmaker acknowledged the growing public discontent over the rising cost of living and the closure of businesses since the removal of fuel subsidy in 2023, but urged Nigerians to be patient and maintain trust in the reforms. He pointed to the exchange rate unification as a painful but critical decision to align supply with demand, warning that failure to do so could have plunged the country into a Zimbabwe-like economic collapse. And now to discuss this, we're joined by political analyst George Brown. Mr. Brown, thanks for joining us. The former Edo State Governor and now Senator Adams Oshiomhole, says the economic reforms of President Tinubu is setting Nigeria on the right path to recovery. Do you agree?
Yeah, good evening, viewers. Hope you can hear me clearly.
Loud and clear.
Perfect. Fantastic. Thanks for having me. We don't need to belabor what's going on in the country. It's clear, it's obvious. Even the blind can feel it. The blind can sense it. And even the deaf can kind of understand what's going on in the country. The real effects of the economic policies of the current administration is felt. Nigerians shop from the same places, they shop from the same markets, they purchase energy from the same energy market, and everybody feels the pain, everybody feels the heat. Even the wealthy and the upper class, they also feel the impact of the economic decisions of the current administration. However, I will want to say that the gains that the government and her departments, agencies, and ministries are banding around does not have or don't have a real feel on the ground. The citizens are not feeling the impact of whatever the government is claiming to be gains of the administration. The government went to the streets and went to town to tell people that they've cleared IMF debts. What is the impact or the effect, the positive impact or positive effect on the price of commodities or staples in the market, or even energy, in terms of power, PMS, DPK, which is a petrol, which is a kerosene, or LPG, which is the cooking gas. Nigerians don't feel any of that. However, in spite of that, I want to understand and I want to believe that these are effects of bad governance in the last 8 years. Nigeria went on a downward spiral in the last 8 years. And the last administration just wanted to just exit and hand over to this administration that is going to be 2 years in some few days or few weeks' time. And Nigerians should not expect a quick fix in just 2 years. And that is why I also want to say that the so-called coalition that is galvanizing support against this administration should not be accepted by Nigerians, because that coalition has not come out to tell Nigerians what is it that they are going to do differently. They've not come to tell Nigerians what are the station of power.
Mr. Brown, I think we've lost him. There is Mr. Brown. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
I can hear you.
Let's just stick to economy, shall we? Because I think that Nigerians are stuck between, the devil and the deep blue sea, giving you analogy, saying that they can accept another coalition that's against this government, and they all seem to be the same. But let's just stick to the metrics, shall we, and talk about stats here. This administration and all of the supporters of this administration, whether appointed or elected, have said that there seemed to be measurable improvement in poverty rates and also employment figures. One, and then two, we know for a fact that when the outgoing president of the AFDB, and that is none other than Adeomi Adeshina, talked about that there's no difference, that in fact Nigerians were better off in 1960 than they are now, given the metrics. We saw the body language and the rhetoric by the presidential aide, Bayo Nanuga. He was very, very hard on Dr. Adesina and said that, he didn't know what he was saying, and despite the fact that he's the outgoing president of a socio-economic body. And so it begs to ask the question, based on your own views, has there been a measurable improvement in poverty rates or employment figures in response to claimed economic recovery by this dispensation or this administration?
On the macroeconomic level, the government is trying her best. But on the micro level, absolutely not. Adewumi Adesina, the AFDB president, what he said is absolutely correct if we put it on paper and based on stats. What Nigerians were enjoying in the 60s, before 1960 to 1964, 65, the standard of living and the economic indices that were driving our economy and the numbers are better off compared to this day. That is a no-brainer. Nigerian economy and Nigerians had a better and a higher standard of living compared to this day. That is for a fact. Now let's leave the 60s and jump into the 20s. From 2015 to date, it is clear and obvious, based on the prices of commodities, what it is today and what the buying power and the capacity of the Nigerian to spend is all about. In 2015, we know what the prices of goods and services used to be, even the cost of energy at 2015. We know what the percentage of inflation was compared to this day. We know what our foreign reserve used to be compared to this day. We also know what the price of the foreign exchange, the dollar to the naira, used to be and this day. Same thing with the cost of energy, the cost of power, kilowatt hour, and the cost of petrol, the cost of diesel, the cost of LPG, and the cost of kerosene, the cost of transportation. We know what all these are. So we don't need to start bandying those figures. These are realities. This current administration or Mr. Bayo Adenuga cannot tell Nigerians that this current situation that Nigerians are going through is better. Absolutely not. It is not better. It's terrible, it's despicable, it's downright and outright a no-brainer that Nigerians are suffering. No two ways about it. And what this government is doing is trying to make the previous immediate past administration to even look saintly, even though we know that the foundation for this crash was set in the last 8 years.
Right. I mean,
through her way.
Yeah, Mr. George, I wish we could continue, but this is where we have to, put a pin in this discussion. But many thanks for joining us. Mr. George Brown is a political analyst and joins us live all the way from Port Harcourt, Rivers State, to give an insight following comments made by the former governor of Edo State, Senator Adams Oshiomhole. Let's go on a short break, shall we? When we return, we head back to Edo State this time as Governor Okpeyolo vows no retreat and fight against cultism in Edo State. But first, let's go on a short break. Stay with us. And you're welcome back. And it's off to judicial matters, where the trial of the leader of the indigenous persons of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, has been adjourned to May 21st for the continuation of the cross-examination of the second prosecution witness. Justice James Omotosho of the Federal High Court in Abuja adjourned proceedings after admitting fresh evidence tendered by the prosecution. Our correspondent Joshua Marai reports from the court. Take a look.
The Federal High Court in Abuja on Wednesday admitted fresh evidence tendered by the prosecution team allegedly linking the defendant to the killing of former presidential aide Ahmed Gulag. Justice James Omotosho admitted both the medical report and the death certificate of Gulag following the no objection plea from Kanu's legal team. The documents were presented by the second prosecution witness codenamed Triple B, who also submitted a police report from Owerri alleging Gulag was killed by suspected members of IPOB. During cross-examination, the defense team led by Kanu Agabi challenged the credibility of the video evidence obtained during Kanu's detention by the DSS. The defense raised further concerns over Kanu's alleged solitary confinement and prolonged detention. However, the witness maintained that he had no knowledge of Kanu's well-being, saying he acted solely on directives from the Attorney General's office. Under intense questioning, the witness admitted he did not draft the charges, had not arranged a meeting between Kanu and his accusers, and could not confirm when the charges were amended. While Kalu's lead counsel denied any restrictions, the judge warned against misinformation on social media, cautioning lawyer Aloy Ejimako over an unverified post.
The cross-examination of BBB started today and went on smoothly, but the defense got to a point where they needed documents to confront the witness, and those documents have been applied for. The CTC have been applied for, but not obtained yet.
The court further adjourned the trial to May 21st and 22nd for further cross-examination of the second prosecution witness. In Abuja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarayi.
And now to discuss this, we're joined by legal practitioner Sam Amadi. Dr. Amadi, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate you for coming on. Let's just get started. What are the legal implications of the adjournment of a high-profile case like this on to May 21st to June 2nd?
Well, the judge has discretion to adjourn cases, but again, constitutional requirement is that accused person should be tried quickly. Part of fair hearing is also the right to be tried quickly. Already, that has been compromised, not by this judge, but by this is perhaps the longest running criminal trial in Nigerian history. One of the longest running, if not the longest running, in terms of the time he was arrested, the time he was on bail, the time attempts were made to kill him, as he alleged, at the time he flew out of the country and arrested and detained till now. So already the presumption of innocence works to the extent that you have to try accused persons quickly for two reasons. One, so that they do not spend a lot of time in detention or with, even if they're on bail, with the notion of jeopardy around them. And then if they're found innocent, you can't compensate for those long years of detention. And secondly, because the evidence also are fresh and the state does state interest in quick trial because it's both for the purpose of defense and purpose of prosecution. But as you can see from the proceeding, this case has so many knotty areas, knotty issues, the issues of interdiction, the issues of illegal arrest, the issues of many orders of court not being complied with. And now, for the first time, I think, we seem to be making real progress. So even at that, by now, there should be no adjournment on the basis of non-provision of documents. Everything should have been uploaded. When an order for a document is given, it should be DSS and whoever, all those in control, should make sure that those documents are in, so that we can just take a couple of months and get this case disposed. Not just for the legal issue, but also a lot of political outcomes seem to hang on this case, particularly the fragile state of security in the Southeast.
And how does this court determine the admissibility of evidence during the cross-examination of a prosecution witness?
So I didn't get the question. I said what?
I'm talking about the admission of this evidence as during the cross-examination, I beg your pardon, of a prosecution witness. How did they determine whether or not it's admissible during a cross-examination of a prosecution witness? Because that's what's really causing this to be extended, right?
Yeah. Well, no, part of it is that, look, every evidence that is produced by prosecution or defense, or defense puts through cross-examination, has to be, the first question to identify is whether it's admissible. And generally, relevant evidence are admissible, especially if they also are both relevant as well as produce through proper procedure. And in this case, the court will, if there's an objection, and in many cases, the defense didn't object to the medical reports because, of course, their probative value in terms of determining the guilt, otherwise of the criminal, is not that strong. So they wouldn't argue. But if it's evidence that is very dangerous for their case, and evidence that its relevance is far-fetched, or its production, circumstances concerning the evidence is so that they're incriminating or wrongly obtained. For example, if evidence was obtained from the witness or from the accused persons illegally, in virtue of their right, they all evidence under duress, defense will object. Those are part of the fair hearing procedures, and they're not the things that lead to undue delay. So it's proper to try to present evidence or to challenge evidence either during prosecution leading the witness or during cross-examination, as long as those objections are timely handled by the judge. And in this case, I think so far the court is doing well in managing the complexity of this case.
And one has to ask at this point whether, repeated adjournments can be seen as a violation of the defendant's right to a fair and, most importantly, speedy trial.
Of course, they are. They have been construed. If the adjournments are unduly long, for example, at the instance of prosecution, then some judges have made criminal trial struck the case out because first it clogs the court's docket. Criminal trials are priority. You can see it's like a daily trial. And so if because of shortness, sometimes prosecution does not have a good case or they have not prepared a case. And so they use the court to stall and go on fishing expedition looking for evidence to nail accused person. The court, as a fair arbiter, could interpret that as a fair proceeding where it looks clearly that the prosecution is already or does not have a good case. And so using, especially when accused persons are not on bail. I mean, if an accused person is held in detention and the prosecution is shoddy in their preparation, and it seems to the judge that the delays are undue, and of course the delays seem to be orchestrated at the behest of the prosecution, either to look for evidence or to make up for the incompetent prosecution, the court can interpret those delays as prejudicial to fair hearing in the constitutional protection for accused persons. Due process clause under constitutional protection in criminal case includes undue delay, and when that happens, in some cases, judges may strike out the case or even dismiss them for want of fair and diligent prosecution.
Well, all eyes are on the courts for May 21st to see how this continues to unfold. I must say thank you, Dr. Amadi, for taking out the time to join us. Dr. Sam Amadi is a legal practitioner, giving us a bit of insight following the adjournment of Nnamdi Kanu's case to May 21st and June 2nd. Away from that, the founder of the Leah Sharibu Foundation, Gloria Apoldu, has restated the need for government at all levels and indeed all stakeholders to intensify efforts for Leah Sharibu to regain freedom from her Boko Haram captors. Now, 7 years ago, while Leah was just 15 years old, she was kidnapped along with over 100 other schoolmates of hers. Others have since been freed, leaving her to mark her 22nd birthday in captivity. News Central's Chizobanyo reports that the founder of the Leah Sharibu Foundation, in a press conference in Jos Plateau State capital, says a continued detention is a national tragedy.
As Leah turns 22 today, May 14, 2025, we call on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the entire leadership of Nigeria to fulfill their constitutional duty to protect all citizens regardless of their faith and region. We call on the National Security Advisor, the Nigerian Armed Forces, and intelligence agencies to prioritize Leah's case in ongoing security operations. We also call on the Ministry of Women Affairs to add their voices in the advocacy for the release of Leah Sharibu and all other women and girls who are daily being stolen by terrorists and by all the militia groups in Nigeria. We call on the international community. We call on religious leaders and all other civil societies, and most especially the media, who are always standing by our side and standing in solidarity to speak up against what is happening to women and girls, most especially in this insecurity.
And that was the founder of the Leah Sharibu Foundation, Gloria Apoldu. She joins us now on the news for more on that press conference. Gloria, thanks so much for joining us, and well done on all the hard work you've been doing so far. I have to ask, what new advocacy strategies has the Leah Sharibu Foundation adopted in 2025 to amplify Leah's case globally and locally, just 7 years after her abduction and clocking 22 years in her captivity?
Thank you very much for having me, and we do appreciate you for always amplifying our voices. One of the major things that we, as the Leah Foundation, have decided to do in 2025, which might not be very different from what we have been doing, is to continue to not relent in advocating. Yes, we are tired of talking. 7 years down the lane in captivity, 8 years 8th birthday in captivity. Today she's 22 years old. But one thing we have resolved to do is not to get tired and not to give up, but to continue to advocate for her release, to advocate for the others who are there, because she represents so many of them. And our voices are not just local. We are also calling on the entire globe that once it is a human being that is going through pain, the world should be together and stand in solidarity for such a person. Most especially that she represents the insecurity that is even increasing in Nigeria now. So our strategy is not to be tired, but to continue to advocate and then reach out to others who have been able to be rescued and help them in any way we can.
At this point, one has to ask about, about measurable impact that your foundation's lobbying or policy engagement has had with the Nigerian government or international bodies over the past 7 years. If you can help us to just to detail that or sound the alarm on that, so that viewers at home can be aware of how much work has been going into, just to amplify the voice of Leah and her family.
So for us, for the Nigerian government, first of all, we consistently seek to have, a communication with them, to keep them abreast that, look, this child is still in captivity and she cannot be forgotten. Sometimes we are given opportunity to meet one-on-one with maybe a House of Representatives or a minister, which is very rare and very few, and I don't want to mention names. But then most of the time, it's sad that doors are shut on us from government officials when we want to reach out to them one-on-one, especially when we want to ask them to please reach out to communicate to the parents of this child, to the parents of these children who are in captivity. Using Leah Sharibu's case as an example, we have tried to reach the highest positions during the last administration to see how we can have our First Lady speak on behalf of, the government. Even if it's just words of encouragement directly to the parents, it's difficult. Currently, we have been trying to also do the same. Our doors have not been opened yet to meet with the First Lady. But we asked the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs, this is our responsibility. And this is one of your responsibilities, representing the women of Nigeria. So we expect that they can do something so that the parents can feel the presence of the government.
Gloria, I must say thank you for taking out the time to join us, and we do hope that the right stakeholders are listening and just watching, and our heart goes out to the family, and also happy birthday to Leah if she's watching, and we will not stop looking for her. Gloria, once again, thank you. We'll leave that now to River State. After over 7 weeks of emergency rule in River State, there seem to be no concrete steps towards resolving the crisis between the feuding parties. Head of News Central's Town Hall series in the River State capital on Thursday, our correspondent Biola Festus take a look at the genesis of the crisis and the people's perspectives. Take a look.
On May 29, 2023, Mr. Similala Yefubara was sworn in as a democratically elected governor of River State. At the ceremony, his predecessor and now FCT Minister Nyesom Wike left no one in doubt about how pleased he was that his anointed candidate was succeeding him. Given the father-son relationship dynamics displayed by the duo at the time, it was hard to predict that a rift would soon emerge.
We're doing everything to make sure that we still stand.
However, 6 months into his administration, Fubara and Wike fell apart, leading to a split in their camp. While Fubara accused Wike of desiring to control the state's treasury, Wike also accused Fubara of attempting to dismantle his political structure in the state.
It must impact on your people.
There is a reason for all this crisis, and that reason is the control of the resources of River State.
The rift escalated and left the state's lawmakers divided, with the camp loyal to Wike moving to impeach Governor Fubara. However, on the eve of the planned impeachment, a section of the River State Assembly complex was engulfed by fire in a suspected arson attack.
Fellow Nigerians,
despite President Bola Tinubu's mediation effort, the face-off between Wike and Fubara deepened.
What they want is this red biro. is still with me. They have failed.
On March the 18th, an explosion rocked the Trans-Niger pipeline in Ogoni axis of Rivers State, which proved to be the final straw that broke the camel's back. Later that same day, the president declared a state of emergency in the state and suspended Governor Fubara, citing potential breakdown of law and order in the state.
There have been disturbing incidents of vandalization of pipelines by some militants without governor taking any action to curtail them. As it is, there's no government in Rivers State.
Since then, there have been protests and counter-protests in the streets, either for or against President Tinubu's decision. Amidst the political storm, ordinary citizens, especially those without political affiliations, have been hit hardest.
The issue of declaration of a state of emergency in Rivers State has been dealt with sufficiently. Those for and against have expressed their views. But the most important thing now is for us to move forward. How do we secure the peace in order to maintain good governance and ensure that dividends of democracy are delivered to Rivers people?
One of the mandates given to the Rivers State Administrator, Vice Admiral Ibas, by the President was to restore peace and stability in the state.
My dear citizens of Rivers State.
However, 7 weeks later, the political crisis remains unresolved.
What has the sole administrator done since he came here? What he has done since he came here was to go far and wide beyond the mandate that he was given, to go and dissolve all the government-established institutions. The president can end this whole quagmire political struggle, political imbroglio in less than 30 minutes. And how would he have done that? Call the minister who is under your own employment. Tell him, Mister, you have been the governor of this state for 8 years. Now someone else is there. Stop your interference with governance in Rivers State. You call the assembly, say, assembly, make sure you work with the governor, and I don't want to hear this noise anymore.
Right now, this has created a serious setback for us. Rather than thinking of making progress, all we see are just but daily battles that are very, very unnecessary.
After all is said and done, the people of Rivers State, who are mostly at the receiving end, want things to return to normal in the state.
Everybody wants peace and progress, so but at what cost? If there is progress and some people are being marginalized, then of course that is not real progress. But the real progress is the state moving forward and the resources of the state being used to move the state forward.
Many across Nigeria have tagged the Wike and Fubara rift as a father and son misunderstanding. Now with Wike willing to forgive the suspended governor on the basis of genuine repentance and the governor open for peace talks, the question remains, who will initiate the peace talks? In Port Harcourt for News Central, Biola Festus.
News Central continues its town hall series tomorrow in Rivers State, where critical stakeholders are expected to brainstorm and chat the way forward amid the emergency rule in the state. Switch gears away from that. Let's go on a short break, shall we? When we return, or rather, coming up, urges UN to renew South Sudan arms embargo. We'll tell you all about this just after the break. Join us again. Hey, welcome back. A trial of Zimbabwean journalist Blessed Malanga has yet again been postponed after he appeared in court in Herrera on Wednesday. The postponement followed a request from the prosecution to link his case with that against his employer, the Heart and Soul television channel HSTV. The 45-year-old was arrested over interviews he conducted with a former ruling party stalwart who called for President Emerson Mnangagwa's to step down. Malanga's detention was swiftly criticized by rights and media groups and added to fears of authoritarianism and repression in Zimbabwe. Speaking outside the court, Malanga's lawyer described the matter as a constitutional issue that should be dealt with by the Constitutional Court. And off to East Africa, where human rights group Amnesty International is calling on the United Nations Security Council to act swiftly and renew the arms embargo on South Sudan, accusing the country of violating its terms. According to Amnesty, the recent deployment of Ugandan troops to South Sudan, along with military hardware, including armored personnel carriers and tanks, represents a clear breach of the embargo, which has been in place since 2018. The group says it has verified video evidence showing Ugandan forces arriving in the capital, Juba, on March 17th, raising concerns about escalating militarization in the region. The Ugandan parliament had earlier confirmed the deployment, stating it was at the request of President Salva Kiir to prevent what was described as a potential security catastrophe. The Nationwide League One NLO has nullified the May 9th match between Campus FC and A&AFC after a 15-2 scoreline raised suspicions of foul play. Following a discreet investigation, the NLO disciplinary committee found evidence of match compromise and declared the results void. Both clubs are now suspended indefinitely, pending a final decision from the Nigeria Football Integrity Unit. All officials involved, including referees and the match commissioner, are barred from football activities. Nigeria has been placed in Group D for the 2025 African Nations Championships CHAN alongside Senegal, Equatorial Guinea and Sudan. The tournament, originally scheduled for February, has been rescheduled to 2nd and the 30th. From the 2nd to the 30th of August of 2025. Algeria and South Africa secured the final two spots, joining joint host Uganda, Niger Republic, and Guinea in Group C. Kenya, the other joint host, heads Group A, which also includes Morocco, Angola, DR Congo, and Zambia. Tanzania, also a co-host, leads Group B, facing Madagascar, Mauritania, Burkina Faso, and the Central African Republic. Nigeria qualified by defeating Ghana 3-1 on aggregate and will aim to improve on their runner-up finish in 2018. And that's all at this hour, but before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories. JAMB has admitted to error in 2025 UTME ordered receipt for 387,000 candidates. Trial of IPOB leader Nnamdi Kanu has been adjourned to May 21st and June 2nd at resumed hearing today in Abuja. And we also told you that Amnesty International has urged United Nations to renew South Sudan arms embargo. Now, to remember, they can send us your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number now showing on the screen. And while you're at it, make sure to follow us on social media. We're at News Central TV on all social media platforms. You can always watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, on GoTV channel 23, Star Times channel 274, Apple TV, and you can stream us live on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Judith at TV. Bye for now.